You cannot pour from an empty wine bottle. I'll tell you that. And that's what's starting to happen is because we're so focused on taking care of our patients, we're starting to become fatigued in the amount of empathy that we're pouring into them. So I'd say the first layer to this is although we learned Maslow's hierarchy of needs in hygiene school, we didn't take that and apply that to our own lives.
Hey friends, welcome back to Gloves Off. David Rice, Chief Editor of Dentistry IQ with Katrina Sanders. How are you today?
Hey, I'm so good. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks for asking.
Awesome.
I know it doesn't surprise you. We have another important topic to discuss today.
Okay. Oh
and
my gosh.
It's this little thing, it doesn't happen often, called burnout.
Oh yeah, that never happens. Right.
Fatigue. So I know it never, ever happens. I'm not sure why we're talking about it. But how do we handle hygiene, burnout, and fatigue?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what a timely dialogue this is, because I think a lot of hygienists are continuing to experience burnout. During the COVID-19 outbreak, we saw the manifestation of this kind of long-term chronic burnout in hygienists. We saw a lot of hygienists exit the profession or acknowledge that they were unhappy in the employment situations that they were in. And so that burnout had kind of snowballed and had really escalated over time. And so we saw that movement during the lockdown or the shutdown. And then as dentistry began to open back up, and hygienists have been perpetually playing catch up, so to speak, since that I think that has allowed that kind of corrosion or deterioration of that passion and that excitement that we have for dentistry. And that, of course, is what has led to burnout in many cases. So one thing that I do want to share about burnout, particularly in the healthcare profession, and this is something that we do see plaguing all levels, particularly in healthcare, and that is what we call compassion fatigue. So compassion fatigue is, for example, every hour on the hour, another patient sits down in your chair and you sit and you spend all this time talking to the patient about the fact that they, checked positive to HPV on their health history. And so you would like to do a more advanced oral cancer screening on them to be able to transilluminate their tissues and be able to identify changes. And you spend all this time explaining to the patient about why you care about them. And, if you enter into stage 3 oral cancer and we can't detect it and we can't see it visually until stage 3, then your risk of, losing your life within 5 years elevates by 50%. You start going into all these things. And then the patient goes, no, and declines it, right? Then the next patient comes in, and now you see this patient has some bleeding pockets. And so you want to talk to the patient about moving or graduating from the regular cleaning into more advanced procedure, where now you're going to have the time to anesthetize the patient, get into that subgingival space, clear all of that out. You talk to them about the fact that you understand they have a history of cardiovascular disease in their family. And did you know that if you have, cardiovascular disease in your family and uncontrolled inflammation in your mouth, that elevates your risk of a cardiovascular event? You get on this whole rabbit hole, and the patient says, no. And so what's happening is every hour on the hour, we're interacting with patients where we are pouring into them. And hygienists, I'm speaking your language because I am one. You have to, use the restroom, and you don't have time because you're running in between patients, and you're just dying for a sip of water or a handful of almonds, like in between your patients, or something scrawling in their ear. You're not even taking care of yourself, and you're here pouring into patients. These patients are coming in and they're talking to you about their divorce and the stresses they're experiencing with the kids and all these things. And you are just constantly pouring into them. And that constant pour, you cannot pour from an empty wine bottle. I'll tell you that. And that's what's starting to happen is because we're so focused on taking care of our patients, we're starting to become fatigued in the amount of empathy that we're pouring into them. So I'd say the first layer to this is although we learned Maslow's hierarchy of needs in hygiene school, we didn't take that and apply that to our own lives. We all know that, if you wake up in the morning, you are well rested, you're well hydrated, you have packed your lunch and your snacks for the day, your scrubs are well pressed out of the dryer, you're listening to your favorite music on the way into work, you arrive a few minutes early, so you're good to go. And you've got, your whole day organized, that you're going to have a better, more controlled day. We all know that. And yet, we're so busy pouring into so many other facets and aspects of our lives that I think this is really where a lot of that burnout comes from as hygienists.
Man, now that we're talking about it and having this conversation, that is honestly something that I think about, but I don't truly give pause to.
Mm-hmm.
I know what I go through as a dentist, and it's similar, but it's not the same, because I think for right or wrong, better or worse, I get this layer of insulation, with the people that are around. First of all, I have a buddy.
Yeah.
I have Holly next to me all day, so it's two against one.
That's
and
right.
we share that load together. So that's a huge topic.
Yeah.
So as a dentist, what can I do to help?
Yeah.
How do I help?
I think that's huge, because unfortunately, and this is the other provocative layer to a lot of this, is employment issues are another major source
Mhm.
of burnout for hygienists. Oftentimes there are some inter-office politics that are going on. They say what one bad apple spoils the bunch or whatever, right? 1 gram negative anaerobic bacteria will change the entire dysbiosis of the oral biofilm. And that is true in a practice. So oftentimes the dentist or the practice owner, because they're so busy running a practice and prepping teeth and dealing with marketing and all the other amazing things that a practice owner does, that oftentimes they don't see what are the interoffice dynamics. Is my hygienist being ganged up on or bullied? I can't tell you how many times I hear that that the hygienists are not receiving the support or the resources that they need. It could be something as simple as, I need new instruments. I'm burnt out because I'm working so hard with unacceptable equipment, and I
Sure.
need that support. But here's the challenge. Hygienists weren't really coached in hygiene school about how to have that type of a conversation with the practice owner, how to sit down and say, I need this equipment. I'm running into some challenges with my colleague next door. I'm seeing that, patients that come from this colleague to now seeing me, that we're running into these dynamics. We weren't trained in how to have those dialogues. But I will say, hygienists out there, that is a critical conversation that you do need to start having, because it's important for you and it's important for the overall quality of care that you're going to be providing to your patients. When you are organized, when you have, everything put together, when you're not burnt out, when you just have one of those days where that passion has been ignited, you are delivering a different sense of care. You're communicating with your patients from a deeper layer of empathy, which I think is absolutely critical. But one
Yeah.
other piece that I did want to share, that I actually was an aspect of my thesis for my master's degree program, was the idea around philanthropy and what stepping outside of the dental practice and giving to others can do for you. So for anybody who's ever done, you could do a local, like a mission of mercy, like you could do a local program, volunteering with a local school, doing a fluoride varnish, a mobile dental unit, or humanitarian efforts, on location, out of the country, serving at risk, at need populations. I'll tell you, there is an interesting layer of passion and drive that comes from being in a remote clinic where you don't have a suction. And these patients, some of them have never been to the dentist ever in their lives, and they're sitting down and they trust you, and you see the level of disease, and you get to be a part of changing that person's life by being able to serve. And then you come back to the United States after that. I mean, my goodness, it is palpable, the passion and the reminder in the deep level of skill that we have and what value those skills bring to the community. So I will say that for me, whenever I'm feeling that little flame start to dwindle down, it's like, okay, it's time to go to Mexico, not to party on the beaches, but to really serve and support in an impactful way.
I love that. I'll tell you, in our practice, we have sort of employ this mindset that every 90 days, and there's a lot of data around this, right? Every 90 days, we get out of the box, we get out of the practice, and we go do something or things that are energizing, that are giving forward to the community, that help all of us. So that's one. Two, I love your concept of hygienists. Like, you need to come to gals and guys like me and say, I need your help. Yeah. Here's what's going on. Here's what I'm feeling. How can you help me? That's a different set of questions and a different frame than, oh my gosh, this is wrong, this person's bad, yada, yada, yada. And last and certainly not least, dentists, don't be reactive. I need you to get proactive and approach your team. Listen to the words that Katrina shared today and ask every single person on your team what's going on in their world, what's going on with their day-to-day, and how you can be helpful to them. Katrina, that was so insightful. Thank you so much for that. And friends, thanks for hanging out with us today. We're going to be back soon.
Thank you.